If Venezuela becomes closer to the United States instead of Putin and the CCP, that's a win for the world. If Cuba becomes closer to the United States, that's a win for the world. Because this is a guys we're and also energy and rare earth minerals are key. Okay, because we're the future of the world is the technologies of the future depends a lot of like it requires a lot of energy and it requires a lot of rare earth minerals. And when it comes to these 2 points, unlike other things in the economy, it's a zero sum game. So whatever America doesn't have, China, like the CCP, will have. So you like Americans and anybody else who supports classical liberal values, they should be rooting for America's maximum win in more control over more energy and more rare earth minerals. Because with whatever flaws the United States has, is basically the main supporter of all the values that we support here. It's the U.S. military. Yeah, guys, the values supporting values is beautiful, but you cannot support these values without a significant military strength. Just cheerleading these values is not enough. We need a significant military strength to back them. And we are so lucky that we live in an age where the world's most significant military power is supporting the best values in the world.
Well, I was going to say, I always remind people, and it's just a constant. If you want peace, prepare for war. End of story. Like, you're not going to ever keep your peace if you're not prepared to defend it.
Yeah.
Okay, but do you wanna hand the EU over to China?
Well, the EU is becoming okay. So first of all, the EU is not the EU doing more trades with China is never going to be handing over the EU to China, right? So,
And not to mention,
Aaron,
China uses
Aaron,
economic muscle. Oh, sorry.
no, it's okay. But like, if you guys want to speak, like, just raise your hand so that we're not speaking over each other, right? Remember that EU is becoming less and less significant when it comes to the power that they have. I mean, they're still an
That can
economic
always change.
powerhouse.
There's a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
know,
people in the
but
EU.
like, you have to. Okay, but you cannot replace America with the CCP. Okay, like the economic power that the United States has over Europe, you could do more deals with China, but nothing will replace the United States. The European countries are not even viable as countries without America's military support for their security. They can't even defend themselves against Russia right now, right, without American help. Look at what is left of NATO without America. So I think a lot of the we're gonna go to China and leave America, I think a lot of that is an empty threat. There's nothing that could replace America's economy. There's nothing that could replace the security that America's military brings to Europe. All you're gonna get is some more trade with China and some less trade with America. That is never going to be as significant as just replacing the United States as an ally. Nothing
Well,
can
then
replace.
you just made
But
the
even
case
if
for why we don't need to annex Greenland because Greenland can't replace, the US with China.
no, so here's the thing: United States needs having Greenland will give it more control over Greenland rather than going through agreements and asking permissions to.
It'll make an enemy of the EU.
It would not make an enemy. It will just make them slightly annoyed. That will not turn.
Well, it
It
will
will
make
not
them
turn them
more
into an enemy.
mad. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
but not
so
it would not turn
like
him
more
it would
control
not
over
turn here.
Greenland, but further distancing slightly
Okay,
with the
Samantha,
EU.
I think your miscalculation is that you're basically treating geopolitics like it's basically high school kids being mad with each other. Okay, at the end of the at the end of the day, what speaks the most is not who you like and who you don't like and what agreements that you write on a piece of paper. At the end of the day, might, who has the most might and who has the most military and economic leverage, that's what makes the difference. At the end of the day, if America, like, you could say like, oh, America, I'm going to speak to the hand, I'm mad at you, like, why did you did this? Okay, at the end of the day, if the American consumer, okay, has such high purchasing power that if you want that, you need to have a relationship with America. No matter how much you're upset with America's behavior, at the end of the day, you cannot say no to that. So
Well, then you
economic leverage and military leverage is more important than this drama high school kid stuff. But go on, and then
well,
we go
then,
to Jeffrey.
again, you just made the argument that we don't have to worry about Greenland saying no to America because Greenland can't say no to America if countries can't say no to America.
Well, Greenland can't say no to America means that we could have Greenland for America. Like, what do you mean, like,
Or we
can't
could
say no
just,
to America?
have a military base on Greenland because Greenland can't say no to America, and we don't need to annex it to put the military base or keep our military base
No, no,
there.
you're going to have a lot more. Here, Jeffrey wants to respond to that. Jeffrey.
So I think what Armin's trying to differentiate between is there's a big difference between, say, the EU, the so Greek, like there's a difference between people leveraging economic connections and defending against military intervention, right? So yeah, Greenland can't defend itself against Putin or the Chicoms, and even if, let's say, it just even status quo of Greenland is not sustainable for the United States or United States led Western alliance because of the increased belligerency borne out by, I know you don't like it, Samantha, right? Borne out by Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, the Chinese Communist Party. So defending Greenland or expanding our abilities on Greenland to counter that increased threat is not the same as, well, if you do that, then Europe's going to go to China. I mean, Europe, like the Western European allies, have already been trying to play that two sides against the middle. That's all done. Daddy America's back. It isn't going to matter how many protesters bitch in the street. We're done. We're all done with all the nonsense. It's all done. You can smile and laugh all you want, right? I mean, look, the very things that probably underwrote your support of the Chinese Communist Party, why not just supplant the Chinese Communist Party with America? Right? I mean, if you supported the CCP, by definition, you supported a top down dictatorial system that is unbelievably brutal. Why not support system leadership with one that's not? You still get the system leadership, just not one that's horrible.
These are the arguments that people are making for going. So, ownership removes the tenant risk. A future independent Greenland or a new Danish government could revoke base access to or invite rivals like China to build nearby. Resource sovereignty: Greenland holds massive rare earth deposits. Ownership lets the US mine them under American law, bypassing foreign regulations and securing a supply chain independent of China. Arctic gatekeeping: as ice melts, the Northwest Passage becomes a global shipping shortcut. Owning Greenland means controlling the toll booth of the 21st century trade. The Golden Dome argument: full sovereignty allows the US to install advanced missile interceptors anywhere, anytime, without needing foreign parliamentary approval or diplomatic negotiations. Bottom line is US bases provide presence. Sovereignty provides a permanent resource rich fortress that can't be taken away by a change in local politics. But more importantly than that, it just streamlines, because when you're a tenant there, you have to go through so many regulations to do simple things. Once all of this is under American law, you could just basically do it much more straightforward and much faster.
I'd like to gently suggest that we go to next on the list.
Yes, let's go there.
All right, so next I have Alex.
First of all, I want to say thank you so much to Samantha for switching sides from supporting CCP to supporting America. Because as someone who lived for 11 years under Soviet Union, I don't want to see what happens next. I mean, this ideology has killed 100 million people and made billions of them miserable. And you don't want to know what happens to your food supply when they take over. So thank you very much, Samantha, for doing that. And I also want to say my condolences to Susie for losing someone there. I know how it feels, and I actually dated a Persian Jew before. Very smart girl. And just want to say condolences to that. Uh, Anyways, someone who has lived in a communist country,
I want to mention that there are some similarities between the communists and Islamism, right? The differences are that the communism relies on a class warfare to pit people against each other and kill whoever is going against the government themselves. And the Islamism is relying on religion as an excuse to get rid of infidels. So that's the big difference there. The other thing I want to ask is, did you guys see any of the videos where you have RGC children ignoring Sharia laws overseas? Did you guys ever see that? It's like a cult.
Yeah. We shared it in the show,
Good.
and I'm gonna share it in the show today again. By the way, Neil
Yep.
Bunny sent me a video.
Yeah. And finally, I have a question to Armin. After the revolution is done, is there going to be a firearms training and a requirement to basically learn the history of what happened and doing something that prevents it from ever happening again? Because you guys are having your own Holocaust over there.
So you're talking about our education policy and
Yeah.
also
Measures
whether
that
people.
prevent this from happening again. And the reason why I say it's very important is because I'm a grandson of a Holocaust survivor. Once people learned of the Holocaust, the Jews said to leave the concentration camps alone, don't demolish them, don't do anything, and just have tours every year to Poland, to Germany, to Austria to visit those camps as a living proof that it actually happened. Same thing with October 7th. They left those kibbutzes alone, they left those buildings alone, and they basically have tours of journalists to go there and witness what happened physically. Are you guys going to have something like that? And are you guys
All
going
right,
to
so
have physical firearms in the civilian hands?
so let me answer now, if I may. Okay, so first of all, like I obviously can't speak for the future of Iran. Okay, like what happens in Iran is going to be determined from based on the politicians that we elect, right, in a democratic system. With regards to firearms, whether we're going to have something like the Second Amendment, whether Iranian people are going to be allowed to own weapons or not. I don't know where that is. Also, with regards to the education policy, again, that's going to be determined based on who we elect in our parliament and also based on the people we elect to write our constitution. So I am almost sure, if I had to guess, that we are going to have the same, just like we have Holocaust memorials. I'm pretty sure the Iranian people are going to have a lot of memorials and remembrance ceremonies every year for what happened during the massacre of January 8th and January 9th. I'm pretty sure their names are going to be on walls. I'm pretty sure their pictures are going to be everywhere as heroes. I'm pretty sure the stories are going to be told for decades and decades and decades. I'm pretty sure the history of what happened, and not just what happened on January 8th and January 9th, the history of our fight against the Islamic Republic for the past 47 years is going to be part of our education system. I'm pretty sure the history of Reza Shah and Muhammad Reza Shah, the proper history of them, is going to be part of our education system. I'm pretty sure our ancient history properly is now going to be taught in our education system. I'm pretty sure many are going to have so many cultural programs regarding our ancient history, our culture, the continuation of Muhammad Reza Shah's attempt to reintroduce Iranians to their ancient identity and history. This time, the whole country is going to be behind it, unlike when Muhammad Reza Shah was doing this against the wishes of many of the mullahs and the leftists in Iran. This time, the whole country is going to be behind it. So I'm pretty sure on that front, we're going to, like, if I had to guess again, I can't speak for all of Iran, But if I had to guess, I think we're going to go full force on that front, when it comes to, it's going to be basically very similar to how Jews remember the Holocaust and the lessons that they learned from that and the education regarding that in their school. So I think that's what you could expect in Iran. With regards to firearms, I honestly, I don't know which way we're going to go. I see a lot of Iranians, after the experience they have with the Islamic Republic, very much in favor of something like the Second Amendment. However, I also see a lot of people arguing that the country is unstable in the first couple of years, and that's going to cause maybe chaos. I don't know which side is correct. I just know that that's going to be determined. I am actually less clear which side the country is going to come down on, whether we're going to be armed, not armed. I do think that maybe for the initial few years at least, because we need to give monopoly of being armed to the central government, just so that we have less chaos. And then maybe after we get to a stable point, maybe we could talk about whether the people should be armed or not. I think that being armed for Americans make a lot of sense. I don't know if that makes as much sense for other countries. We have to see. It does. I do really believe it makes sense in America, right? A lot of countries, democracies depends on America being the world superpower. So there is no superpower be above America to make sure America remains a democracy. So then that's why we need to arm American citizens to make sure America also remains a democracy. But I don't know if we need that for other countries. For many other countries, being a democracy makes sense because the guarantee of remaining like the main motivation for being a democracy is because it's easier to trade with democracies. It's easier. Democracies are more stable. Democracies are more prosperous. They have freer markets, and therefore they grow faster and they're easy to be allies with America. So as long as America is a democracy, that creates a lot big motivation for other countries to either be a democracy or move towards being a democracy. So, but for America, we don't have anything like that. That's why Americans need to be armed. So I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense for Iran or not. I'm open to both sides. Does that answer your question, Alex? All right. So, Danny?
Next on the list, I have Jeffrey. He raised his hand a bunch of times, but I'm not sure if he wanted to speak or just respond.
Oh, do you want to speak to this, Jeffrey?
Oh, well, I was just gonna say real quick to Susanna I can't pronounce her last name. Check your messages.
Okay.
Thank you.
No worries. Send up the chain.
All right. In that case, I have Richard next.
Hi, thanks a lot. So I just wanted to, this is really more of a pontification, I guess, than a question. But I just wanted to bring something to your attention, Armin, and definitely to Jeffrey. If you've read President Trump's book, The Art of the Deal, he talks a lot about negotiation with parties that are known not to be credible and the techniques that you use. I think if you think back to the 12-day war and you look at the extreme obfuscation that Trump used, basically using the perceived negotiations more as a weapon to confuse the enemy, even going so far as to creating artificial tension with Israel to sort of throw them off the scent as to the cooperation we were doing. I can see you agree. This actually relates back to another book I love. It's the Art of War by Sun Tzu. He talks a lot about using the carrot of negotiation with an enemy known not to be trustworthy as a means to confuse them. And actually, I think it's entirely possible, I don't know if you'd agree, that this entire smokescreen of last minute negotiations with the Islamic Republic over their nuclear program is simply another, sleight of hand. That you love Trump or hate him, he is the master of the diplomatic sleight of hand. If you heard that last part.
So Richard, I have a question.
I saw my mic went off at the last thing I said, which is just that Trump was a master of the diplomatic sleight of hand. Love him or hate him.
So, based on what you're saying, do you think it's accurate to say that, how we expected Americans to attack shortly after the massacre on January 8th and January 9th, and everybody expected them to attack, and it didn't happen? do you think so? A lot of people now are saying that, I mean, we already discussed this here, but I'm just saying this for people who didn't hear this before, that a lot of people are now saying that the whole point of that was for the Islamic Republic to move assets, to move money, to basically prepare their air defense, to make all the communications that they need to do, thinking that the attack is imminent. And while they were doing that, the Americans and the Israeli collected a lot of information regarding what would they do and where all their assets are and where all the key people are and what all the communication lines are and the defense mechanism when the attack happens. And now when the attack does happen, all of that information is very useful to Americans, and these are strategies and methods that cannot be easily changed. So do you think that making it seem like they're going to attack was a method by the Trump administration to collect all of that information?
I certainly wouldn't put it past him. And I think that argument is reinforced by the actions they took immediately after the aborted attack to basically create the perception that it was stopped by local Arab powers or even by Israel because they didn't think it was going to be. It certainly is pretty suspicious. But I would like to say that if that attack did happen after January 9th, it would be the only time in Trump's entire, I guess, 5-year presidency now that an attack occurred when it was expected. Trump's attacks never occur when they're expected. Again, that sleight of hand technique is very useful. He's caught every single enemy by surprise. I always keep, taking the bait, so to speak. I don't know what's going on inside of his head, but he often plays against expectations, or by knowing what the enemy expects, he uses that, to the advantage of his strategy.
That makes sense. Okay, that's very interesting. I'm going to mention that in the show. Thank you, Richard.
Anytime.
Can I, before we go to the next person, can I just read BT's comment in the chat? He's saying my sinuses burn almost as much as Muhammad's ass at the night of Al Zut.
God damn. Savage.
Okay. That was
so awesome point by Richard. It was a really awesome point that he brought up, and I saw that Jeffrey liked that a lot too. I have some news relating to that from Reuters here. I'm not sure if you guys have heard the news about Friday yet.
No, go ahead.
Steve Witkoff, which has been, for those of you that follow diplomatic efforts by the Trump administration, he's been kind of the point man. He's going to be meeting with Abbas Araghchi on Friday in Turkey.
Yes, in Turkey. Yes,
yeah.
Yes. I mentioned that.
But to Richard's point, we very well could be looking at the same exact pump fake type of strategy here with the negotiations. And I think that's what we're looking at.
So here's the thing, that those negotiations might actually be serious. And again, I'm not against them, because anything that the Islamic Republic gives up right now is basically going to defang them more before the attack happens, right? Like I mentioned, the more you negotiate with the Islamic Republic, like the way Obama and Biden did, it benefited the Islamic Republic because it would have just bought them time to rebuild and recover and basically get stronger, right? But now the negotiations used to be a tactic for the Islamic Republic just so that they could become a bigger threat. They used to think that they're fooling the Americans, and they actually were when it comes to Biden and Obama. But right now with Trump, negotiations is basically making the war easier, because all you're doing is basically remove, if they say yes to any of the terms of the agreement, is basically a removal of one of their deterrent capabilities before you actually have to take it out militarily. So it's actually, it makes sense to negotiate with them, because like, look at the things that are on the table other than recognizing the state of Israel, which is not a requirement that they will never accept. But we have the 60% enriched uranium, we have the ballistic missiles, we have support for the Islamic terrorists around the region, the proxies, and we have the killing of Iranians. These are the main things that are they want from the Islamic Republic. Right now, the Islamic Republic, the only thing that it could be willing to part with is the enriched uraniums, because even though that's a deterrent capability that they have a little bit, it's not as significant as the other things, right? Especially the ballistic missiles is the most important one, right? But imagine if Trump gets to, first of all, Trump comes in and says, like, oh, we want all of them. But let's say, like, oh, so the Islamic Republic is not going to agree to that because there's no way they're going to agree to all of that. But then then the Islamic Republic says, well, Trump wants something more than a lot, but then he usually agrees to something a lot less. So Arakchi is now offering Trump to basically get the 60% enriched uraniums and put it in Turkey. So far and wide around the region, they might give some of them to Hashtashabi to take to Iraq, some of them to Zainabian to take to Pakistan, and some of them to Fatimian to take to Afghanistan. And it's going to be a nightmare to figure out where all of this is and basically trace them and make sure that they don't turn into eventually 90% enriched uranium somewhere and turn into a dirty bomb that one day they're going to be used in Europe or in Canada or United States, right? That's going to be a nightmare. So if I was Trump, I would like, let me see if I could get this out of their hands, okay? And then attack anyways, right? So that's why this negotiation makes sense because it just makes the process of removing them a lot. I mean, why not? I mean, imagine if Trump is going to attack 2 months from now or 3 months from now. I don't know when he's going to attack. If that's the case, then in the meantime, why not see what I can get from them before I attack, right?
It's a very good point. 2 questions to follow up your points here. Number 1, if they were to make that deal for them to hand over some of their enriched uranium, what's to stop them from just enriching more in the meantime? Because according to most of the analyses, not all of the equipment for enriching the uranium was destroyed, and they're already working on new sites. And then number 2, regarding the negotiations, I'm not sure how accurately you'll be able to predict this, but how likely do you think it is that they actually come to that agreement or any agreement?
Well, okay. So the first question, I mean, they are working very hard on enriching uranium in their other new sites very deep underground. So they are actively moving in that direction. So that is happening. So they are basically what Arakchi is trying to do is basically give up the 60% enriched uraniums that they had from the Fordo site, but to see if they could make the Americans not attack. But yeah, they are still enriching uranium, and they're working on enriching uranium in the other sites for sure. They're never going to give up on that. That's their only remaining deterring capability after all the proxies, and they used most of their ballistic. After losing so many of their rocket launchers and using a lot of their missiles on Israel in the 12-day war, they feel very naked. So they're never going to give up their enrichment of uranium. What was your second question?
Like, how likely
Oh,
do you think
what
that
are the
they
chances?
actually Yeah.
Yeah. So to all of the terms, zero. To all of the terms, that would be their, like, if they give everything up, everything that they want in those terms, that would be their very last day, because then they are completely naked. So it's like a walk in the park for Israel and the Iranian people to then do regime change if they give up everything that the US is asking for. So there is no way they're going to agree to that. That would be their very last day if they do, right? They're basically America is saying, like, hey, we won't attack if you just give up all your deterrent capabilities. Well, if they give up all of their deterrent capabilities, then America doesn't even need to attack anymore. The Israelis and Iranians will be able to easily just behead them the very day after. But when it comes to they might be like, how about we just give you this? And again, it seemed like the thing that they want to give is the 60% enriched uranium that they had left over from Fordo or other places, right? I mean, Jeffrey has some points to add to that. Do you want to respond to this? Yeah.
So Armin touched on a lot of things again. The baseline, which is given the pseudo theological motives that underwrite the Mullah regime, and subsequent very little elasticity, meaning change of behavior, because they frame all their position gain or loss metaphysically. It's not like fighting the Soviet Union where you can hold Moscow hostage and all that other stuff. The probability of them ever giving up their pursuit of nuclear weapons or WMDs in general, or aggression towards Israel and their neighbors, is very low. So what about why would they give up the 60% uranium? Well, because of the operational impact of revolutionary technologies and subsequent alternative means to provide or to obtain fissile material or alternative WMDs. Just when it comes to fissile material. So yeah, we hit Fort Al, Isfahan, Natanz. Donald did the right thing. Very much disrupted the Mullah regime's traditional approach towards enriching uranium. Tragically, that's not the only means that is available to the Mullah regime to obtain enriched uranium, whether it's getting turnkey systems from Pakistan, from the Chinese Communist Party, from Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, or leveraging things like SILIX, which is laser-based enrichment. Again, it fits in a garage. It requires very little electricity. It has no UF6 outgassing. I mean, it's very hard to detect. What does it mean? It means even giving up the 60% uranium, given the elasticity of the Mullah regime's intent to obtain fissile material. In other words, their breakout capability like that is rapidly growing. Or maybe they go after alternative WMDs, like, their profile is different. They go after bioweapons, which is real easy to do. The point is the Mullah regime has to go. Witkoff's view of things, at least from my people, the people I know in the administration, different people have different ideas on how to best approach the world. Witkoff is a billionaire businessman, so he sees things the way a businessman would, right? Economic interdependence. This is not a person, like the mullahs aren't people you can do a deal with where they're going to hold true to it. And Donald knows that, which is why Armin and a couple other people, Richard, had mentioned like what President Trump thinks about dealing with actors that you can't trust, right? You never want to seem desperate to have a deal, and you always deal from strength and use leverage. You always try to keep the opposition.
So, Jeffrey, if they were to make that deal, do you think that the end result of it would simply be that more time is bought, like the timeline just gets stretched a little bit?
The only thing that the Mullah regime is probably trying to do is buy whatever little time they can to try and cross the asymmetric deterrence threshold. I don't know what happened. I'm sorry I'm coughing so much. Like Ajida, defined as nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles, and become kind of like the North Korea of the Middle East, as Armin had said.
I don't think that President Trump is going to be happy with that. I don't think he's going to go for that personally.
Donald's not a dumb guy. Like,
No.
he understands who they are.
That concludes my questions. Thank you, guys. And Javid Shah, everybody.
I think
thank you.
Aaron wanted to add something really quickly because it's been 10 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Power dynamics. A nuclear Iran in the Middle East means they are the dominant force in the region. They are a resourceful country. They are not in North Korea. Like, people, North Korea, they have nuclear arms, but at the end of the day, they are beholden to China. Iran would have the capability of being nuclear and not being beholden to anyone. And one thing I kind of like to point out, nuclear armed nations do not have to follow this European rules established order through the UN. And that was proven like when Putin toppled Crimea, like just not even the war. He just took Crimea. So I kind of like to point out that a nuclear armed nation can do what they want and face less repercussions. And that's kind of just the point I'd like to just add on top of that, that I don't even think Arabic nations in the area publicly, they say we don't want it to happen, but privately, I think they're like, we need this to happen, in my opinion.
The Arab countries in the region, well, not Qatar, but the rest of them, it seemed like they don't want a war unless it's going to completely top. They don't want to wound the Islamic Republic and let them then act like a wounded animal against them. They basically either don't attack, or if you're going to attack, just finish the job. That's the position of most Arab countries around the Persian Gulf. Yeah, so let's go.
All right. Next, I would like to call up Tejal.
Yeah, what's up, guys? Hey, Suzanne, I'm sorry to hear about your friend. I hope that's pretty fucking rough. I hope it works out, for lack of a better thing, for whatever that's worth.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I was going to say about Greenland. The thing about Greenland is that it is an essential strategic asset. The Chinese and the Russians, excuse me, both the Chinese and the Russians want to lay claim to it, and both of them want to put troops there. And if we don't do something about it, they will, because the Danes don't have the guts or the nuts to stop them. They're just a bunch of spineless Europeans at this point. So we got to take charge and do what we can to acquire it, because we can't let them put troops there. That would be a fucking disaster. So that's why we got to acquire Greenland, whether by buying it or.
Joel, if let's say you save someone from getting raped, do you have the right to rape them because you saved them from getting raped? So you might as well get to rape them. Do you think that's appropriate?
Whoa.
Samantha, I think making a place more safe and prosperous is not the same as raping.
His argument basically comes down to, well, if we prevent China and Russia from stealing it, then we should be allowed to steal it.
No. If you make the people there better off and you don't steal their resources, you buy it, that's not stealing. China and Russia will steal. You will basically be negotiating and trading with them. Usually when people get raped, Samantha, they're worse off. If you are under America's umbrella, you're better off. So it's a false analogy. But go on.
Well, what if they don't think they're better off and they don't want to be bought and they don't agree to be bought?
Well, then you have to, but that's a different argument. I think that America has ways to convince them that this is a better idea, but then you're missing the point. I'm saying rape is not a good analogy here.
It's really not the same thing. The difference is we're not the CCP and we're not the Russians. And it's vital to our own interest and to our own people that we do not allow the Russians and the Chinese to attain Greenland, because that would be disastrous for us strategically. Having them in our hemisphere like that cannot be allowed, period, in the story. So we got to do what we got to do. And even if we did have to invade and take it, it would still be better than if Russians and Chinese took it.
You don't have to invade a country to protect it from Russia. You can protect it from Russia without owning it.
Invade is not a invade. No, invade, first of all, is not the right term here. And also, given that it's under the territory of the Europeans, no, Europeans are not in a position to protect Greenland from Russia and the Chinese. But go on, John.
No. It's going to come to that. I don't think we're going to have to invade it, acquire it through other means. I think we can purchase it and make it worth their while. And that's what we need to do, and so that we can secure it and thus secure our hemisphere. It's as simple as that. It's just got to be done.
Yeah, European laws are so bureaucratic. Even if they allow Americans to do what they want in Greenland, going through all of that mess and also not making it certain and making it so that the Europeans could basically change their mind, that doesn't give enough security. And it's not going to be worth America's investment into providing so much military support in something that is not even theirs. So if you want to make it make sense for America, it has to be America's.
Yes. I think we can buy it and make it worth their while, and I think that's what we should do.
I don't know, man. It sounds like saying, if you want me to protect you from getting raped, have sex with me.
Samantha, I mean, you keep saying that, and we keep making the counterpoint, but it sounds like you're not listening.
That rhetoric, first off, is just ill in taste, and period. Like, that's not a rhetoric to use about this. It's like we're raping, burning villages and pillaging people. We're bringing hospitals, we're bringing healthcare, we're bringing education, we're bringing literacy with that. I mean, that does not, that's the complete opposite of raping to me.
Exactly.
So
I'm pretty sure most people in Greenland are
I can respect your opinion
and they have better healthcare than
on
you do.
being against America using its military muscle to, I can respect that opinion, but to compare it to rape, that's just crossing
it's an insult
lines.
it's an insult to rape victims. It's an insult to rape victims.
First off, it is, because America punishes soldiers who rape anyone, period. Like, they do hard time in Leavenworth for that. So I do kind of like to point that out. And, I can respect the opinion, and I will respect that. I don't think you actually have to worry about America taking over Greenland. I think Trump's just drawing a ideological line against China. And he's telling Europe to pick your side, pick your poison. You can go with China, who, when companies and media companies tried to speak up against Hong Kong and democracy, economically strong-arm them, or you can go with America where you can come into our system, protest our own government. You can get Americans to protest our government for you, and we're raping you. That sounds like we're getting raped. We're getting screwed in that deal. Other people can come to our country and say, your country's screwed up. I'm going to protest you, and I'm going to go tell you to go protest your government to help my country. That sounds more like a backwards. Who's getting screwed in that deal? Answer me that question.
Yes. It's not a one-to-one. It's not the same thing. We're trying to secure our interests. We're not interested in oppressing the people of Greenland. We need to get control of it one way or another in order to keep the Russians and the Chinese
from taking it without conquering it.
I think we can make it work well. I think there's a way to do that. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's going to come down.
All right,
Yeah,
Joe, that's good. That's good. Let's see what Jeffrey has to say.
So I'm going to jump in since we're playing hypotheticals. All right, Samantha. If the choice is either we conquer Greenland or China, like the Chinese Communist Party or Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state conquers Greenland, would you support us conquering Greenland to defend it against Putin and the Chi-Coms? Since we're playing hypotheticals. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, but that's very reasonable, Samantha. And by the way, Joe, a lot of people are enjoying your laughter. They think it's very demonic, and they're enjoying that. So,
I agree.
But
I think it's time to move on.
Could I hop in there for one second on Greenland?
No, because your turn is next anyway, so I'm going to pass it off to you and you can say anything you want.
Go ahead, then.
Someone else
Go ahead,
speaking?
Katie.
Oh,
No, it's
yeah,
you, it's you.
Samantha. Yeah, it's really a choice, like Jeffrey said, between China and the United States. But it's also, do you want to become a battlefield? And this has happened before. Denmark owned what is now the U.S. Virgin Islands. For 50 years, the United States tried to buy it, saying, look, this is in our region and we're going to have to defend it. Push comes to shove, if you can't defend it, we will. What happened was Denmark said no. I don't know how the islanders felt about it, but usually when people think that they have leverage, they will use it. Well, what happened was World War I broke out, and then it became a real thing, a real threat that they would end up under Germany. And the United States basically said, okay, make your choice. We either buy it or we invade it, but we're not allowing it to remain as it is. And, you know, if I were an islander living on the Virgin Islands, I'd much rather not become a battlefield in a major global conflagration. And that's really the choice. We're trying to make it now instead of waiting for the war to break out. And then that region becomes the battlefield. And then no one has any choice.
All of Europe. Why don't we just take over all Europe?
Well, the thing is, Denmark was neutral, which would have meant Denmark would have been dragged into World War I because their territory would have been invaded, and they wanted to remain neutral. And in a strategic location, you're not going to remain neutral. They're not going to respect your border at that point. And so that's really the situation you're looking at.
Can I bring up a very relevant factor? So a lot of people don't realize this because if you're not a U.S. state, if you're like one of our territories, we actually not only paid you, but we're also providing like free health care. And I kind of take offense to that because of a lot of Americans want free health care and our colonial subjects get it. So just want to add that to it, that it's not a free of charge relationship we have with these territories.
No, you're absolutely correct. Yeah.
Can I also add something real quick, if you don't mind? A little history lesson.
Really quick.
In World War II, when Hitler invaded Denmark, they surrendered to Hitler in a matter of hours. So we basically had to defend Greenland de facto.
Exactly.
We gave Greenland back. So I don't know if that counts for anything. We also gave the Philippines back.
Well, and I mean, Greenland's just lucky that the kind of weaponry that was available at World War II made Greenland not as important. That same situation is not true today.